This clueless bald guy actually dared to make that gesture towards Zhang Yi. Qin Jingwan's humiliating defeat has disgraced Heavenly Sea City. Now, everyone knows that the leader of one side in Heavenly Sea City was played like a bug by Sun Jianming. Faced with Zhang Yi's questioning, Qin Jingwan had nothing to say. Zhang Yi didn't let him continue to argue and coldly said, "You don't need to explain anything to me. After all, we're not that familiar." Hearing this, Qin Jingwan felt a chill down his spine. These words already expressed Zhang Yi's attitude. "Since you, Qin Jingwan, don't listen to me, we have no relationship, and the life or death of your morning dew base doesn't concern me." Is he really planning to abandon our morning dew base? Thinking of this, Qin Jingwan hurriedly admitted his mistakes to Zhang Yi. "Big brother Zhang Yi, I know I was wrong. Getting beaten was indeed my own fault. From now on, I will listen to everything you say. Please don't give up on us." This duel had allowed Sun Jianming to gauge their strength. If they meet at sea again, he might go for the kill, or even possibly cross the sea to wipe them out. Qin Jingwan was scared. Zhang Yi laughed softly. "You need to rest now. Stop talking." Zhang Yi thought, having the giant sailing ship of Morning Dew Base wouldn't be bad. After all, it's all Heavenly Sea City's property. It can't be left for outsiders to snatch. At this moment, Zhou Qir on the side saw through Zhang Yi's intentions. He hadn't spoken definitively, which meant that Zhang Yi still hadn't planned to give up on the Morning Dew Base. So, she stood up, walked over, and said with a smile to Qin Jingwan, "Let me check your injuries first." With Zhou Qir's mediation, Qin Jingwan finally felt somewhat relieved, but he also understood that he must show enough sincerity, otherwise Zhang Yi wouldn't protect them. Zhou Qir used her powers to check Qin Jingwan's body and found that his internal organs were severely damaged. Although externally he only looked to have a bruised nose and swollen eyes, his life was at risk at any moment. Zhou Qir activated her powers, healed Qin Jingwan's injuries, and handed him a bottle of medicine. Qin Jingwan was extremely grateful, thanked her repeatedly, and pleaded with Zhou Qir to speak on his behalf to Zhang Yi. Zhou Qir returned to Zhang Yi's side and whispered, "This guy named Sun Jianming hits too hard. Qin Jingwan's internal organs are seriously damaged. Fortunately, I was here, otherwise he could have died at any moment." Zhang Yi's eyes flashed, and he looked towards the forces of Days City not far ahead. Sun Jianming seemed to feel Zhang Yi's gaze, turned his head, and made a throat-slitting gesture towards Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi withdrew his gaze and said lightly, "Let's wait for the meeting." Everyone had been waiting until around 2 p.m. when Zhu Jing finally appeared at the venue. Accompanying him were Tu Yunlai and Sun Lushuan from the United Front Department. This was probably related to the incident that morning. Zhu Jing looked very serious. He began by saying, "Welcome everyone to Blizzard City. Today, a special matter delayed me for a bit, and I apologize for that here. The purpose of calling everyone here is simple, and I'll get straight to the point. We are going to establish the River South Superpower Union. Everyone within the River South domain must participate, especially the major forces of the 12 cities, who must become important members of the Union. The Union will be under the jurisdiction of the River South domain headquarters. Members will operate within their respective areas, and I will temporarily serve as the president. In the event of special incidents, the region will assign tasks, which must be carried out by the members without contravention. Will the Union provide any benefits?" This question caused a stir at the scene. Can we refuse to participate? If the conditions are good enough, can we move to Blizzard City to live? Hearing this, someone couldn't help but laugh loudly. Isn't this just making us the lapdogs of the region, and the kind that brings their own dog food? Zhu Jing raised his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, and a powerful aura instantly quieted the crowd. He continued, "Of course, we won't make you work for nothing. As long as you complete the tasks assigned by the region, you will receive corresponding rewards. Medicines, weapons, and other supplies from the region can all be obtained through task points." Hearing this, Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. This was indeed quite tempting. As far as he knew, the technological level of the region was far beyond his imagination. Origin bullet, training suits, and Edmund metal. These were probably just the tip of the iceberg. Combined with various weapons made from Edmund metal, joining the Union seemed like a viable option. Zhu Jing ignored the discussions below and continued, "From now on, infighting within the region is strictly forbidden. In the past 6 months, continuous internal strife within the region has caused many unnecessary losses. This pointless death and injury must end immediately. Anyone who dares to encroach on other areas without cause will not be overlooked by the region." Hearing this, Zhou Qir felt somewhat relieved, thinking, wouldn't this mean peace throughout the land? But Zhang Yi sneered softly, the corners of his mouth twitching slightly, and said, "Don't be naive. It's fine to listen to such words, but there will always be those who desire more. Human greed is endless, and for resources and greater power, there will always be those who choose to invade others." Sure enough, at that moment, Gu Hongdai, the female leader of Days City, asked coquettishly, "But what about those weaker forces that occupy rich resources? What should be done about them?" As these words were spoken, all eyes turned to Heavenly Sea City, especially to Qin Jingwan, who had just suffered a major humiliation. Zhu Jing furrowed his brows and said in a deep voice, "Resource redistribution will be coordinated by the region. However, as it stands, the resources of all parties should be sufficient for survival, right?" As soon as he spoke, some of the mutants below began to murmur among themselves. They said, materials are not just for survival but are strategic necessities. How can these resources be enough if one wants to expand their influence or prevent others from encroaching? Some materials are essential, such as weapons, energy, and people. Is the river South Domain going to manage this too? Isn't that a bit too much interference? A man wrapped in white cloth stood up and shouted angrily, "Does the region intend to take us all under its control? If we have to listen to your arrangements for everything, allowing you to manipulate us, wouldn't we be no different from puppets?" Some people thought the man in white had a point, but just as his words ended, a swooshing sound was heard, and the head of the mutant flew off his neck, followed by a plop. It turned out that Sun Luxuan, who was beside Zhu Zheng, had made his move. Zhang Yi was shocked. This guy moves so fast. The distance between the two was at least 30 meters, but Sun Luxuan had managed to kill the man with just a gesture. Zhang Yi, a spatial power user, hadn't even had time to sense the spatial fluctuation. "This is too strong." Sun Luxuan retracted 3 steel wires and continued to watch the venue expressionlessly. The mutant he had just killed was a leader from Sichuan City, said to be very powerful, a Delta-level mutant on the same level as Xiao Honglian and Wei Dinghai. However, he was instantly killed by Sun Luxuan, and Sun Luxuan was just a guard beside Zhu Zheng. Zhang Yi's face also showed a hint of shock. Bailey Changqing had once said that Zhu Zheng's personal guards were stronger than Bian Zhenwu, and now he had witnessed it himself. Amidst the commotion in the venue, the black-robed squad rushed in with a group of Swallow Cloud guards. At that moment, Deng Shintong also appeared with the Heavenly God Corps, shouting loudly, "Nobody move." The squad entered through a side door. At such a time, it wouldn't be difficult for Zhang Yi to escape, but he didn't think Blizzard City would carry out a major purge on everyone present. Shou Kir and Lu Karen, standing nearby, were frightened by this display and moved closer together. Zhu Jing said sternly, "I am not discussing this with you. Don't misunderstand. This is merely to inform you any organization that refuses to join the Union will be seen as opposing the region, and such forces, naturally, have no reason to exist." Zhang Yi's mouth curled into an indifferent smile. He had anticipated this outcome. He couldn't believe there were still so many fools trying to reason with a behemoth like the River South Domain. Their brains must have been frozen by the minus 60 degrees temperature. After that strong show of force, Zhu Jing glanced over the crowd again and loudly asked, "Does anyone still have objections to what I just said?" Zhu Jing forcefully established the Union and made an example of others, compelling the various forces present to sign the contract. However, all this was within Zhang Yi's expectations. He found it very reasonable and even thought that if he were Zhu Zheng, he would likely take the same approach. After all, continuous internal conflict would only deplete the entire region. What would they have left to resist an external invasion? For Zhang Yi, signing the contract was just a formality. Although he disliked being controlled, he had to admit the strength of the River South Domain. Zhang Yi naturally signed the contract. In reality, he didn't care about the procedure. If one day Zhu Jing assigned him a deadly mission, he could just as well choose to ignore it. After all, one must know how to adapt. After Lan Xincheng submitted a form, Zhu Jing nodded in satisfaction. He told the crowd, "Please be assured, the region will not let you exert yourselves in vain. From now on, each month, you will receive a supply of goods, including specially made weapons and equipment from the region. If you complete the tasks set by the region, you will also receive substantial special rewards." Saying this, Zhu Jing pulled out a small blue vial and continued, "This is the latest development from the region's scientists, called Compound Number 2. Its function is to stimulate and unearth potential abilities. Simply put, after using it, you will become stronger." The crowd instantly buzzed with excitement. Until now, the only known method to become stronger was devouring, but devouring is not only complex, it also requires killing the opponent, and the number of mutants is already low, making improvements less significant as time goes on. This made the new drug even more desirable to everyone. In the apocalypse, strength is everything. However, Zhang Yi slightly furrowed his brows. He thought of Bian Zhenwu, who seemed to be a user of the compound, and the side effects were likely caused by the compound. Zhang Yi did not want to take that risk. Nevertheless, it was clear that others were deeply attracted by this product. Zhu Zheng's approach of a carrot and a stick indeed dissolved much of the discontent among the crowd, at least making them feel that there are benefits to following the region. At this moment, Zhu Jing spoke again. "Recently, a group of Ronin from country Fluorescent appeared in Coastal City. There are 13 of them, and they have already taken over the entire Coastal City. Anyone who can eliminate these Ronin will receive 10 doses of Compound Number 2 and control of the entire Coastal City." The crowd was immediately stirred up. The words country Fluorescent had a huge impact. In the past, no matter how they fought among themselves, even involving life and death, it was merely a domestic issue. But now, with foreign enemies invading, their hatred immediately shifted direction. Beside them, Uncle Yu was so angry he clenched his teeth. "Those bastards, wipe them out." Zhu Jing continued, "These Ronin come from the north of country Fluorescent, a notorious Yakuza organization known as Erosion of the Moon. After dominating Kanto, they set their sights on the mainland of country Hua and thus crossed the sea." He added, "We have already contacted the high-level forces of country Fluorescent, and they have stated that these individuals are not affiliated with the official government. So, you can go ahead ahead with the hunt without concern. Zhu Jing emphasized another point. The fact that they were able to annihilate the mutant forces in Coastal City shows that their strength is not weak. At this point, a veteran-like mutant spoke up. However, we have the advantage in numbers. Moreover, there are many deceitful elements in Country Fluorescent. Their upper echelons claiming these people aren't theirs might not be credible. These Ronin could very well be their advanced troops. If we go to carry out this mission, we might fall into their trap. Zhu Jing sneered and said, if it ultimately proves that these people are connected to their higher-ups, their previous statements of no official affiliation will make things easier to resolve. They struck first, so we naturally have the right to an unlimited counterattack, even to the extent of flattening them with a nuclear solution. Everyone then realized the deeper implication. With the military backing of the River South Domain, they really didn't need to worry. Uncle Yu, appearing somewhat excited, asked Zhang Yi, should we participate in the encirclement and suppression? As a retired veteran, Uncle Yu had a special sentiment towards such matters. However, Zhang Yi was pondering why Zhu Jing didn't let the investigation squad handle it. Although the Black Robe squad was severely weakened due to the loss of Bian Zhenwu, the Heavenly God squad was still at full strength, not to mention the 5,000 Swallow Cloud guards. Was Zhu Jing planning to preserve his elite forces, using others as cannon fodder to test the enemy's strength? This made sense. After all, the enemy managed to wipe out the entire coastal city without anyone noticing, a testament to their formidable strength. Thinking this, Zhang Yi shook his head and responded, we should not act rashly for now. Ultimately, 10 factions signed up to participate in the mission to encircle and suppress the Fluorescent Ronin. However, Zhang Yi had other plans in mind. He thought that if these forces could successfully exterminate the Ronin, that would be great. If the encirclement failed, he could still gather more intelligence. When he made his move, his chances of success would be higher. Zhang Yi thought, 13 people were able to take over a city. Their strength might surpass that of the investigation squad. If that's the case, this encirclement mission is bound to be very bloody. After Zhu Jing declared the meeting over, Zhang Yi and a few others quietly left the venue. Back at the operations center, Zhu Jing looked at the registration form submitted by Lan Xinchen. Indeed, 10 factions had signed up, and the combined strength of these forces was formidable. However, Zhu Jing was disappointed because Zhang Yi's name was not on the list. Heavenly Sea City is the closest to Coastal City, and Zhang Yi's strength is also sufficiently strong. It seems Bailey Changqing wasn't wrong. He indeed prioritizes personal interests. Such a person is indeed not suitable for absorption into Blizzard City. At this time, Lan Xinchen came over and said, after experiencing the crisis of the undead horde, Heavenly Sea City is in dire need of rebuilding. Their population of living humans is extremely sparse, and with their current strength, it would be very difficult for them to take on the entire responsibility of stabilizing Heavenly Sea City. Moreover, Zhang Yi's performance has also been disappointing. Why not consider supporting a new group of powers? Heavenly Sea City was once a super metropolis with a population of 20 million and abundant resources. Now, however, its population has drastically decreased due to disaster. Hearing this, Zhu Jing thought for a moment and nodded. The current major powers in Heavenly Sea City are indeed incapable of governance. We could consider introducing forces from other cities. This would not only ensure the stability of Heavenly Sea City, but also counterbalance Zhang Yi, preventing him from monopolizing power there. Thinking this, Zhu Jing said to Lan Xinchen, this mission involves 10 forces, and one coastal city is certainly not enough to distribute. We could bring a few of them to Heavenly Sea City. The two casually discussed dividing up Heavenly Sea City like a piece of cake. Actually, for Zhang Yi, this didn't really matter. Having Heron's River District and West Mountain District was already enough for them. Their team was small and did not need too much territory. Just then, a rapid knocking sounded outside Zhu Jing's office door. It turned out to be Deng Shintong from the Heavenly God Squad requesting to see him. Zhu Jing gestured for him to come in, and Lan Xinchen said with a smile, this Deng Shintong is definitely coming to volunteer for battle. He's always been the most enthusiastic about executing missions. Currently, on Blizzard City's point leaderboards, Deng Shintong had been dominating for more than 2 months. Zhu Jing felt very pleased about this. Deng Shintong was not only young, strong, and aggressive, but he was also extremely talented, a rare gem. Additionally, with his superior background and handsome appearance, he had many supporters in Heavenly Sea City. Many even believed that once Zhu Jing stepped down, Deng Shintong would likely take over as the commander of the region. After Deng Shintong arrived in the office, he directly asked, why aren't we being sent for this mission? The newly formed union hardly has any combat effectiveness. Having many people is useless. They are not professional. Moreover, there is too much open and hidden conflict between the various forces, making it hard for them to effectively unite and cooperate. Zhu Jing listened, but only smiled and counter-asked, how much do you know about the Eclipsed Moon Squad? Deng Shintong was at a loss for words for a moment. Zhu Jing continued explaining, currently, Country Fluorescent is divided into the Kanto and Kansai factions, and the Eclipsed Moon group falls under Kansai's jurisdiction. Even though Cloud Rise and Kansai's Yakuza factions have been rivals for years, even Cloud Rise has been unable to handle the Eclipsed Moon group. This alone shows that the strength of these Ronin should not be underestimated, and they might even be be a match for our investigation squad. Without definite intelligence, I cannot risk sending you into danger. The 6 investigation squads are the pillars of Blizzard City. Deng Shintong laughed somewhat mockingly. Regardless of how strong country Fluorescent might be, how strong can they really be? Zhu Zheng's gaze hardened as he said solemnly, underestimating your opponent is underestimating yourself. Never underestimate any opponent. We can disdain the enemy strategically, but we must always take them seriously tactically. So, does the commander want to let the outer city forces gather some intelligence first? Deng Shintong asked. Zhu Zheng nodded. Yes, if they can successfully handle these mutants, that's great, but if they fail, at least we can gain some insight into Eclipsed Moon's capabilities. Deng Shintong sneered. I don't have much hope for that rabble. However, Deng Shintong suddenly asked, did that guy named Zhang Yi participate in this mission? Upon hearing this, everyone present showed a hint of surprise. After all, as the captain of the haughty and self-important Heavenly God Squad, Deng Shintong rarely mentioned others by name. Zhu Zheng's face showed displeasure. That guy didn't even sign up. He's truly self-centered and afraid of death. Surprisingly, Deng Shintong laughed and defended Zhang Yi. I think he's just being smart. At least he sees that this mission isn't so simple. Zhu Zheng clearly disliked this comment and said coldly, if everyone were as self-centered as him, the superpower union couldn't function. As a military man, Zhu Zheng believed in unconditional obedience to orders. But Deng Shintong laughed and replied, people have their own aspirations. If there's nothing else, I'll head back to train and be ready to serve Blizzard City at any time. After saying this, Deng Shintong disappeared from the spot. However, he was thinking, I must hurry to get Zhang Yi into my Heavenly God Squad. It would be a shame to miss out. Meanwhile, just as Zhang Yi and his group were leaving the venue, they were ambushed. From the other side, someone sarcastically shouted, Heavenly Sea City is right next to Coastal City, and now it's invaded by the Fluorescent Ronin, yet you all are shrinking back and trying to run away. What a disgrace. The speaker was Sun Jianming, leader of one of the 3 powers from Days City. The 3 powers from Days City had far more mutants than Heavenly Sea City. If it came to a fight, Heavenly Sea City stood no chance unless Zhang Yi intervened. Everyone turned their gazes towards Zhang Yi. Yet Zhang Yi simply said, didn't I say to stop causing trouble in Blizzard City? Have you forgotten already? Hearing this, Sun Jianming looked at him with disdain and said, so the people of Heavenly Sea City are all cowards. This provoked a round of roaring laughter. At that moment, no one noticed the sheer killing intent brewing beneath Zhang Yi's calm demeanor. Faced with Sun Jianming's insulting gestures, Zhang Yi chose to restrain himself. Others were so angry they could almost bite through their teeth, while Zhang Yi still spoke lightly. Didn't Marshal Zhu say it? The encirclement mission is voluntary. We from Heavenly Sea City have the right to choose not to participate. Upon hearing this, Sun Jianming and the other 2 exchanged glances, their eyes filled with even more disdain. The mutants by their side even started to mock, laughing uncontrollably. To say such things, truly laughable to the extreme. Hiding behind others in the face of national duty, just like a turtle hiding its head. And you dare to represent Heavenly Sea City at this meeting? I think the forces of Heavenly Sea City might as well disband on the spot and give up their territory early. At this moment, the mutants from Heavenly Sea City all looked extremely displeased. Even the usually mild-mannered Liang Yu couldn't help but frown. She looked at Zhang Yi and said, Zhang Yi, just say the word and I'll rush up and fight these disgusting people. However, Zhang Yi, listening to these taunts and jeers, remained calm and spoke indifferently. The weak get angry because of others' provocations. Would the strong lose their composure over a bunch of bugs? The voices of these ants are really too insignificant. After saying this, Zhang Yi turned around emotionlessly and left. Excuse me. Before the sound of his voice had faded, he walked straight towards his apartment, his friends following closely behind, leaving Xiao Honglian, Xing Tian, and others bewildered. They had thought Zhang Yi would take action, but unexpectedly, he didn't show even a hint of temper. This scene dumbfounded everyone, including the forces from Days City. Sun Jianming, furious, spat vehemently on the ground. A bunch of cowardly rats. Pa, what trash. Gu Hongdai sneered. They take this pretty boy as their leader? He looks utterly weak. At this moment, Chen Lianyu's eyes gleamed with sly light, murmuring, they're so weak. Isn't that exactly what we want? They had already concluded that Heavenly Sea City was now vulnerable. Even more boldly, they began to discuss how to divide up Heavenly Sea City. On the way back, Chen Jingwan muttered quietly, Zhang Yi is too tolerant, isn't he? To be insulted to his face and not even talk back. Xiao Honglian also hurriedly caught up, saying, Brother Zhang Yi, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing your approach. I just think there was no need to be so passive towards them just now. Zhang Yi turned back and looked at her coldly, retorting, what attitude? Xiao Honglian said, it just felt a bit like showing weakness. We clearly didn't need to do that. Zhang Yi sneered, and what do you think would have been appropriate? To rush up and take them down, then get punished for violating Blizzard City's regulations? Or should I have stooped to their level and hurled insults back? They outnumber us in voices. We wouldn't necessarily win a shouting match. Xiao Honglian said, but if we just walk away like this, they'll think we from Heavenly Sea City are weak and easily bullied. Zhang Yi scoffed, being weak isn't my fault, is it? Behind him, Chen Jingwan's face flushed red upon hearing this. That was clearly a jab at him. Xiao Honglian seemed about to continue, but Zhang Yi Yi impatiently interrupted. Are you here to teach me how to handle my affairs? Do I need to explain my actions to you? Although Zhang Yi appeared to endure in silence, he was not a person to be bullied. In fact, he had already planned how to deal with these arrogant bugs. After returning to the apartment, Xiao Honglian seemed to have more to say, but ultimately she held back. Xing Tian noticed her concern and stepped forward to advise. Times have changed. We can't rely too heavily on Zhang Yi anymore. Our three bases are no longer the powerful forces they once were. If other forces coveting the resources of Heavenly Sea City attack, without Zhang Yi's protection, we will undoubtedly be defeated. It might be better to take this opportunity to think about our future. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi had also called his friends into his room. Liang Yu was the first to speak. Zhang Yi, where are we going to act? She knew well that Zhang Yi was not one to suffer in silence. With others already bullying them to this extent, how could he remain indifferent? Hearing this, Zhang Yi's lips curled slightly as he said softly, we're not the ones who should act first. We need to wait for them to make a move. Liang Yu was somewhat puzzled. If we wait for them to act first, won't we end up in a reactive position? Zhang Yi looked at everyone with a smile and asked, so, what do you think we should do? At this moment, the usually timid Chun Lei boldly stepped forward. Clenching his fists in righteous indignation, he roared, those guys are too hateful to insult us in front of so many people. I can't stand it. Why don't we ambush them on their way back and eliminate them in one fell swoop? With our boss's strength, wiping out these ants is as easy as flipping a hand. Zhang Yi countered, do you understand their strength? Chun Lei was momentarily speechless. Zhang Yi continued to ask, and do you understand my strength? Chun Lei was suddenly frozen, left with no choice but to shut his mouth and say no more. Zhang Yi spoke seriously, since we are all friends here, let me be honest with you. First, my strength has not reached the catastrophic level of Yuan Kongya. Even though I have absorbed her essence, it wasn't complete, and her essence was also flawed to begin with. This might have to do with the nature of her abilities. So, I have not reached the Epsilon level. In fact, I'm only a stronger presence within the Delta level. He continued, changing his tone. You have all seen Sun Jianming's strength. He can easily overpower Chen Jingwan. From this, it can be inferred that the leaders of the other two powers are likely not much different. To act recklessly without understanding the opponent's capabilities is extremely foolish. And you, to brazenly talk about ambushing them, isn't that just blind arrogance? Chun Lei, his face flushed with embarrassment, hung his head. At this moment, Zhou Qi also realized the gravity of the situation and began to analyze carefully. Now, the three great powers have many more mutants than us, and their overall strength is completely on a different level. Our only advantage is that Zhang Yi is stronger than them, but we don't know anything about the types of abilities they possess, and to rashly go and ambush them would be too risky. Zhang Yi nodded in agreement. Exactly, you all were blinded by anger. Remember, the first rule of surviving the apocalypse is to always stay rational. Liang Yu also came to her senses, thoughtfully saying, that's true, there's no such thing as invincible. Didn't Yuan Kongya think the same? Yet, she was still defeated by Zhang Yi, who was weaker than her. Zhang Yi would not make the same mistake. Even when a lion fights a rabbit, it uses all its strength. He spoke with a wise expression. Rest assured, instead of going there in a rage and exposing our weaknesses, it's better to wait and fight on our own turf. Chun Lei quickly smiled. I knew the boss wouldn't let them off easily. Zhang Yi shrugged and said with a smile, instead of us going to them, let them come to their doom. He had already formulated a clear plan, luring the enemy deep into one's territory to capture them easily. He slowly outlined his strategy. They are so arrogant now, merely trying to test the mettle of Heavenly Sea City. Now that Chen Jingwan has been beaten and we have been ridiculed and chosen to forbear, they will think that Heavenly Sea City is just a soft persimmon ready for the picking. Saying this, Zhang Yi projected a map on the table, pointing at it and saying, Days City is not far from us. Soon, they will definitely choose to invade Heavenly Sea City. Remember, Heavenly Sea City is our home ground. As long as they dare to come, I'll make sure they can't return. Upon hearing this, everyone exclaimed in awe, boss is truly the boss. This strategy of enticing the enemy into our territory is brilliant. Fighting on our home ground means higher chances of victory and fewer losses. Everyone admired Zhang Yi's intelligence. At that moment, Lu Karen curiously blinked and asked, if that's the case, why didn't you explain this clearly to Xiao Honglian and the others just now? Zhang Yi smiled faintly and said, just now, there were too many people around, and it was too risky to disclose the real plan. It's not too late to discuss it back in Heavenly Sea City, as we'll need their cooperation anyway. The most important thing is to give the three great powers a sense of crisis, making them clearly aware of their own strength and who they are really relying on. Although the three great powers superficially respected Zhang Yi, they still clung tightly to their meager resources, harboring some illusions and unwilling to completely hand over their power to Zhang Yi. This threat from Days City could serve as a wake-up call for them. Lu Karen said with admiration, as expected of brother Zhang Yi, thinking so far ahead. As they were parting, Zhang Yi also instructed Zhou Qi to pass a message to the leaders of the three great powers, advising, during this period, you must endure. Treat any ridicule as if you haven't heard it. At the same time, he also tried every possible way to gather some information about the fluorescent Ronin. Afterwards, he contacted Bailey Changqing, but Bailey Changqing excused himself himself as busy and did not reveal any intelligence, only warning him that the situation was much more serious than imagined and saying to say more would be overstepping. Zhang Yi was struck by a thought. His relationship with Bailey Changqing wasn't very deep, just mutually owing each other a favor. For him to warn to this extent almost certainly meant that the mission to encircle Eclipsed Moon was extremely dangerous. This further solidified Zhang Yi's stance to wait and see. He thought, if Blizzard City really forces him to act, then they must provide sufficient intelligence and readiness resources, otherwise, he would not participate. As everyone had anticipated, the incident that happened outside the venue quickly spread throughout the 12 cities' mutant community. Heavenly Sea City instantly became the laughingstock of all major powers, and the most affected was, naturally, Chen Jingguan. After all, everyone had seen Chen Jingguan being beaten like a dog by Sun Jianming that day. Now, his reputation was ruined, and even his subordinates' attitude towards him had subtly shifted. In Blizzard City, Sun Jianming still had some reservations and did not strike with lethal force, but Chen Jingguan's real strength had been exposed, and once back in Heavenly Sea City, Sun Jianming would surely attack with his fleet. By then, their entire base would be doomed. After much thought, Chen Jingguan made a decision. At this moment, while resting, Zhang Yi heard a rapid knocking at his door. Expecting Chen Jingguan to come asking for help to salvage some dignity, he prepared a few dismissive words to send him on his way. But unexpectedly, as soon as Chen Jingguan entered, he wore a distressed expression, and the next second, thump, he knelt on the floor, pleading, "Mr. Zhang Yi, please take over our Morning Dew base." Zhang Yi was surprised, but quickly understood his intention. After this incident, he finally realized his own level of strength. Given their current situation, Morning Dew base was doomed to destruction sooner or later. He also knew that only by relying on my power would they have a chance to continue. Zhang Yi thought to himself that if he took over Morning Dew base, those skilled in navigation and fishing could be used for his own ends. All things considered, this deal was quite worthwhile, but he could not agree too readily to Chen Jingguan, as that would devalue his own worth. Watching Zhang Yi remain silent for a long time, Chen Jingguan became anxious, sweating profusely. He thought, Zhang Yi's team was all elite, the base lacked nothing. It was not surprising that Zhang Yi wouldn't value them, but now Zhang Yi was their only lifeline. Then, Zhang Yi slowly began to speak. "Get up first, tell me what you're thinking." Chen Jingguan had already prepared his argument and quickly said, "I've been with the Morning Dew base's fleet for 7 years and have deep feelings for it. After Chief Wei died in battle, I was appointed in a crisis, but sadly, I'm not strong enough to take on the responsibility of protecting the base. Now, Morning Dew base, being such a juicy target, has surely caught the eyes of many. It won't be long before they attack. So, I hope Mr. Zhang Yi can take my place as the leader of Morning Dew base and protect the base and our brothers." Zhang Yi nodded, thinking Chen Jingguan's reasoning was indeed correct. He also understood that if an enemy invaded, Morning Dew base falling into others' hands would be disastrous. With a smile, Zhang Yi said, "You are also clever, knowing that I'm lazy by nature and dislike managing things. Even if you recognize me as your leader, I fear the tasks will still need to be managed by you." Hearing this, Chen Jingguan immediately affirmed, "Rest assured, we dare not disobey your commands." Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow, feeling the atmosphere was a bit odd, thinking to himself, this is awkward. Anyone would think this is a marriage proposal. Seeing that Zhang Yi did not outright reject him, Chen Jingguan decided to lay all his cards on the table, sincerely saying, "As long as Mr. Zhang Yi can become our leader and protect the brothers, we will meet all your demands unconditionally. Whether it's food, weapons and ammunition, or even women, we will offer them to you without condition." Zhang Yi quickly interrupted him, "Stop, stop. I already have enough people to deal with. What do you take me for?" Chen Jingguan. At this moment, Chen Jingguan looked at Zhang Yi with hopeful eyes, full of pleading. He said in a low voice, "It was all because I was too impulsive today. I definitely won't dare to do that again." Zhang Yi leaned back on the sofa, casually stating, "I could consider being your leader, but then you'll have to hand over the keys to the shelter. The keys to the shelter are specially made, and only with them can the doors be opened." Hearing this, Chen Jingguan did not hesitate to take out a box, respectfully handing it over. "Here are the keys to Morning Dew base, including the cabins, shelter, and armory. 3 keys in total. With these 3 keys, you are the leader of Morning Dew base. There are 2 sets of these keys. I kept 1 set as the deputy, and this set is for you." Zhang Yi took the keys, puzzled. All 3 keys are managed by the same person? That's quite unreasonable. Chen Jingguan immediately explained, "Originally, there were 3 people managing them, but they all died in battle, and now I'm the only one left, so I'm fully in charge." Zhang Yi nodded and stored the keys in his spatial storage. This moment also marked his official takeover of Morning Dew base. Seeing this, Chen Jingguan felt a huge relief, stood up, and bowed. "Thank you, leader." Zhang Yi said indifferently, "The day-to-day management of Morning Dew base is still your responsibility. If there's anything special, I'll give you further instructions." Chen Jingguan's face was filled with smiles, thinking to himself, "Indeed, I don't have what it takes to be the top leader. Being the deputy feels too good." He then leaned in to make a gesture, whispering, "What's our next move, boss? Head back to Heavenly Sea City, or find an opportunity to take out those scoundrels from Days City." Zhang Yi smirked coldly, then warned, "I have my own ways to deal with the people from Days City. For now, you just need to go back and wait for my instructions. How to handle things is not your concern. I will take care of it." Seeing Zhang Yi's confident demeanor, Chen Jingwan felt much reassured. He dared not ask any further, respectfully bowed, and left Zhang Yi's room. The next morning, a vehicle driven by Bai Chunyu from the Heavenly God Squad stopped in front of the apartment. Inside the apartment, the gossip about Zhang Yi continued unabated. Someone commented, "Who is the Heavenly God Squad looking for in the apartment? Looks like they're here for those weaklings from Heavenly Sea City, right?" Bai Chunyu paid no mind to the idle gossip and went straight to Zhang Yi's residence. Upon learning of Bai Chunyu's visit, Zhang Yi had prepared tea and snacks early on and politely invited Bai Chunyu into his house for tea. Once Bai Chunyu was seated, he smiled and said, "There's been quite a bit of gossip about Heavenly Sea City lately." Zhang Yi smiled lightly. "Just bored people. I can't be bothered with them." Bai Chunyu picked up the teacup, took a sip, and continued with a smile, "You really are good-tempered." He had seen Zhang Yi's strength before and knew dealing with those ruffians from Days City wouldn't be an issue. Seeing Zhang Yi's composure now, he couldn't help but admire him even more. "Tonight, Captain Deng has invited you to meet at his estate." Zhang Yi was momentarily stunned. "You mean an estate?" He even doubted his own ears. Although Blizzard City wasn't very large, in a post-apocalyptic environment, every inch of land was precious. Having a two-bedroom apartment here was probably already a luxury only super elites could enjoy. And Deng Shintong actually owned an estate? Even Zhu Jing didn't have one. Bai Chunyu nodded with a smile and said, "You heard right. The Deng family has contributed a lot to the construction of Blizzard City. One of the conditions was that Blizzard City would be built around the Deng family. The Deng Garden has existed for a long time and hasn't been affected by the apocalypse. Don't be too surprised." How could Zhang Yi not be surprised? He had heard about the big families in the capital of splendor, but he had never heard of the Deng family. However, after thinking about it, he understood. After all, the really powerful families often kept a low profile, yet they possessed astonishing influence. Zhang Yi chuckled and said politely, "I apologize for my ignorance. How come I've never heard of the Deng family before?" Bai Chunyu's smile grew deeper, and he said, "This used to be a secret, but it's not anymore. The Deng family has considerable wealth and influence. Many conglomerates in River South are owned by them, particularly famous in the high-tech sector. You must know about the Origin Bullet and the Investigation Squad's battle gear, right? Those were all crafted with the help of the Deng family. You could say that without the Deng family's support, the power of River South domain would be reduced by at least 20%. Inside, Zhang Yi couldn't help but curse silently, "Rich tycoons." But he feigned surprise on his face and said, "That's really impressive." Bai Chunyu said proudly, "So you should understand what an honor it is to be favored by our captain." Zhang Yi nodded and replied perfunctorily, "It is indeed an honor." But in his mind, he thought, "It's still necessary to say some nice things." Bai Chunyu set down his teacup and stood up, saying, "At 5 in the evening, we will send a car to pick you up. Don't be late." After saying this, Bai Chunyu left the apartment. After watching him leave, Zhang Yi began to reassess Deng Shintong. He thought to himself, given his formidable family background and high talent for abilities, not to mention his arrogant and confident personality, this kind of person should not be offended, even if we can't become partners. Now that he is so keen to recruit me into the Heavenly God Squad, it looks like I need to find a good reason to decline. Evening splendor. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a luxurious Rolls-Royce stopped in front of the apartment building. Two people dressed in black combat suits got out of the car. Onlookers around started murmuring, looking at the direction they came from. They must be here for those weaklings from Heavenly Sea City again? Such a grand show. When they saw that it was to pick up Zhang Yi, the onlookers were even more puzzled. Someone whispered, "Isn't that car from the Deng family? What kind of abilities does this Zhang Yi have to make the captain of the Heavenly God Squad personally come to invite him? Could it be that there is another powerful figure in Heavenly Sea City?" Zhang Yi sat in the back seat, arms crossed, looking detached. After about half an hour's drive, the car finally stopped in front of the gate of a park. Bai Chunyu was already waiting at the entrance and greeted Zhang Yi with a smile as he arrived, leading him into the estate. Zhang Yi was stunned by the opulence of the estate. The estate was very large, with soldiers tightly guarding every junction. But once inside, Zhang Yi's amazement gradually subsided. "This place just seems a bit bigger than my shelter. The other decorations are mostly ostentatious without practicality. Nothing really special," Zhang Yi thought to himself. Bai Chunyu clapped his hands, and immediately a female servant came over with tea. Then, Bai Chunyu left the living room. Zhang Yi surveyed the surroundings while waiting for Deng Shintong. He mused, even though the Deng family is a major family in Blizzard City and has substantial wealth, they still can't afford to heat the entire estate nowadays. Money has become worthless paper, and resource allocation is entirely based on contribution. Big families can't just waste resources. He casually picked up a remote control and turned on the TV. Unsurprisingly, the screen was all static. He then picked up a game disc, hesitating about whether to play a game or not, when Deng Shintong walked in from outside. Zhang Yi glanced at the time, 5:58 p.m. The guy was quite punctual. Deng Shintong took off his boots and flopped down next to Zhang Yi, looking as if he had just been through some exhausting labor. Zhang Yi looked at him curiously, thinking, the captain feels completely different today. Deng Deng Shintong noticed his gaze and asked with a smile, "Is there something on my face?" Zhang Yi felt a bit awkward and quickly responded, "No, it's just, you look too handsome." I couldn't help but stare. Deng Shintong paused, clearly not expecting Zhang Yi to be so unconventional. After all, not many people spoke to Deng Shintong with such a tone. After hearing Zhang Yi's comment, he burst into laughter, slapping his thigh. "You're really interesting." Then, he changed the subject. "By the way, I heard you didn't participate in the operation against Eclipsed Moon. Do you have any concerns?" Zhang Yi thought for a moment and smiled. "What's the reason for the operation against Eclipsed Moon? Even without your investigation squad and the Swallow Cloud Guards, there are still 12 other city forces in River South. Besides, Heavenly Sea City is in need of rebuilding. I don't need to get involved in that mess. It's really not suitable for warfare now." Deng Shintong nodded. "That makes sense. With your abilities, you're obviously much stronger than those other city riffraff. But if you had participated, the odds of success would have been greater." Zhang Yi was startled. "Does this guy know my true strength?" Seeing his reaction, Deng Shintong just laughed carelessly. "I was just asking. If you don't go, then you don't go. It's all your own choice." At this point, Zhang Yi's doubts deepened. He was certain this so-called Eclipsed Moon group is definitely not easy to deal with. Suddenly, Deng Shintong spoke seriously. "I won't beat around the bush. I called you here today for one simple reason. Join my Heavenly God Squad. Have you thought it through? You must be aware, the Heavenly God Squad is top tier in the city. Just join us, and you can walk sideways through River South Domain." He continued, "You can enjoy supreme glory and admiration. Whether you want resources or women, putting it crudely, we can satisfy you. You can get everything you want with me." All in all, his tone was filled with confidence, and this was no mere bluster. Zhang Yi exaggeratedly exclaimed, "Wow, that's really impressive. I've seen many outstanding talents in my life, but someone with both strength and talent like you, this is truly the first time." This flattery was quite pleasing to Deng Shintong, who said with pride, "That's what I mean. You've seen too little of the world. Just follow me, and you'll have the chance to see a much broader world." He stretched out his hand. "Come on, become a member of the Heavenly God Squad." Zhang Yi put on a grateful expression and asked, "So, after I join the squad, is it particularly safe? No life-threatening dangers?" Deng Shintong confidently smiled. "Of course, protecting team members is my responsibility as the captain." Zhang Yi feigned relief and said, "Well then, I agree to join your squad." Deng Shintong was about to show a delighted expression when Zhang Yi continued, "However, I'm quite afraid of death, so just assign me to handle logistics within the city." Deng Shintong paused, unable to decide whether to laugh or cry, and said, "Are you kidding me? What use do I have for you in the city? I need team members who can fight." Zhang Yi smiled and explained, "If you knew about me, you'd understand that I never voluntarily leave my territory. My abilities are mainly defensive, and abilities often reflect a mutant's true nature. I value my life. Didn't you say you would ensure my safety?" Deng Shintong realized Zhang Yi was tactfully declining his invitation. Although slightly speechless, he still showed respect in his response. "You are strong enough, yet so cautious. You really are an interesting guy." Zhang Yi corrected, "It's being prudent, not cautious." Deng Shintong looked at Zhang Yi thoughtfully and said, "Aren't you bored staying in that forsaken place all day? Once a person has great power, can you really endure just staying in one spot forever? Don't you yearn for a way to showcase it?" Zhang Yi replied without hesitation, "Isn't it good to just live well? Why must there be fighting and killing?" Deng Shintong, left speechless, waved his hand and said, "Fine, to each their own. Since that's how you feel, I won't force you. But remember, opportunities don't wait for anyone. Once I find a more suitable team member, you'll just be a substitute." Zhang Yi secretly rejoiced in his heart, finally dodged that bullet. He stood up, respectfully saying, "Thank you, Captain Deng, for your generous offer. I'll give it some thought when I get back. If there's nothing else, I should be going." At that moment, Deng Shintong snapped his fingers towards the outside and said, "Wait a second." Immediately afterwards, a maid came in carrying a black case. Zhang Yi took it and saw that it was a case full of origin bullets. According to Liu Karen, each origin bullet cost 100,000 before the apocalypse, and in these times of scarcity, its value could easily be 10 times higher. This case contained at least 100. Zhang Yi displayed a flattered expression and said, "Captain Deng, this gift is too valuable. How can I accept this?" Deng Shintong smiled lightly. "Such things mean little to me, but for you, they should be quite useful and might help you in the future." Hearing this, Zhang Yi no longer declined and said with a smile, "Then I thank Captain Deng. If there's anything you need in the future, just let me know. I, Zhang Yi, will do my best." Saying this, he stored the origin bullets in his spatial storage. This move made Deng Shintong inwardly appreciate the utility of the spatial ability, thinking, this spatial ability is really handy. If we could get him into the squad, it would make missions much more convenient. After saying his farewells, Zhang Yi left the Deng residence. Watching his retreating figure, Deng Shintong felt a bit of regret. At that moment, Bai Chunyu approached and asked, "How did it go? Did Zhang Yi agree?" After learning that Zhang Yi had refused to join the Heavenly God Squad, Bai Chunyu appeared somewhat shocked. This is an opportunity countless mutants dream of. What reason does he have to refuse? Deng Shintong was unfazed and even showed a hint of a smile, thinking, perhaps this is what makes him interesting. "This damned man, you have successfully caught my attention." Bai Chunyu, puzzled, asked, "Then why did you give him a box of origin origin bullets? Deng Shintong said indifferently. A box of origin bullets is nothing to me. For someone who can be of use to me, no cost is too great to secure their alliance. For those who aspire to greatness, why fuss over the small details? Even if Zhang Yi doesn't join my heavenly god squad, today's favor will make him remember my goodwill. After hearing this, Bai Chunyu respectfully bowed. Your wisdom and magnanimity are admirable, Captain. After returning to the apartment, Zhang Yi's friends hurried to his room, eager to find out about his conversation with Deng Shintong. After listening to Zhang Yi's account, everyone was relieved. Fortunately, Deng Shintong didn't make things difficult for Zhang Yi. Otherwise, we might have been in trouble. Shou Kir asked, can we start heading back to the shelter now? Zhang Yi thought of the mutants from Days City, and his expression instantly turned somewhat grim. He said lightly, it's time to go back, and also time to prepare a big surprise for them. He told Xiao Holian and the others, if there's nothing important, we'll head back to Heavenly Sea City tonight. Xiao Holian, puzzled, asked, it's almost dark, why the rush? Can't we leave tomorrow morning? Qin Jingwan then asked, boss, is it because of those guys from Days City? Boss? Qin Jingwan's use of the term surprised everyone present. Shou Kir couldn't help asking, why does he call you boss? Seeing everyone looking at him strangely, Zhang Yi casually said, since we're all on the same side, I might as well tell you. Morning Dew Base is now under my control, and Qin Jingwan is my subordinate. Upon hearing this, Xiao Holian and Xing Tian were shocked. They couldn't help but think, what should we do? Should we follow Qin Jingwan's lead and become Zhang Yi's subordinates? Or continue as we are? But if we continue as we are, we might not receive Zhang Yi's protection. At that moment, Zhang Yi continued, I know you are also angry about those guys from Days City, but I've already thought of a strategy to deal with them. The meeting is over now, and I think we should hurry back to Heavenly Sea City. He shifted his tone and continued, at the moment, Days City has already decided that we in Heavenly Sea City are easy targets, thinking they can manipulate us as they please. They are very likely to take action against us while the district is focused on Coastal City. Therefore, we must return to Heavenly Sea City immediately to prepare for their move. Qin Jingwan's eyes lit up, and he quickly flattered, boss, brilliant. Plan first, then act. Let them underestimate Heavenly Sea City and become complacent. We need to be fully prepared, rely on our home advantage, and then strike them a decisive blow, completely annihilating them. Then everyone will know that Heavenly Sea City is not to be trifled with. Let them never dare to covet Heavenly Sea City again. Zhang Yi added lightly, that's about it, but we still don't know what actions they will take. So, we must return to Heavenly Sea City and respond flexibly. By then, the advantages of timing, location, and people will be on our side. The only thing you need to do is to organize your weapons, stay alert, and never let your guard down. He looked around the group and continued, there's no time to delay. Pack up, and let's head home now. Soon, Zhang Yi and his group gathered their team and started walking out of Blizzard City. This scene was just noticed by Sun Jianming from Days City, who couldn't help but sneer. What a bunch of cowards. They must be scared of us taking action, so frightened that they're running home to feel safe overnight. It seems that the resource-rich Heavenly Sea City is indeed occupied by a few weak forces. What a waste. The more Sun Jianming thought about it, the more he saw an opportunity. He immediately contacted the leaders of the other two powers. Gentlemen, come over for a tea. There's movement in Heavenly Sea City again. We can't just sit idle. The three major powers of Days City quickly agreed and unanimously decided to wage war on Heavenly Sea City. They were convinced that Zhang Yi and his group's overnight return was due to fear of their might, especially after the incident where Qin Jingwan was severely beaten. Sun Jianming grew overly confident in his own strength, believing himself to be exceedingly powerful. Now, he was full of the desire to conquer Heavenly Sea City. Sun Jianming immediately summoned Chen Liangyu and Gu Hongdai. The three of them had already tacitly agreed on their intentions. After Qin Jingwan exposed the current strength of Heavenly Sea City, not only Days City, but many mutant organizations from other cities had long coveted the fat meat of Heavenly Sea City. Everyone was looking for an opportunity to either share it or monopolize it. Days City, located to the northwest of Heavenly Sea City, undoubtedly had a geographical advantage. With this in mind, Sun Jianming said, I think our three families can join forces and press them. As long as they are willing to hand over most of the resources of Heavenly Sea City, we can spare their lives. Although Heavenly Sea City is now in ruins, the few remaining forces still have significant foundations. I alone definitely can't monopolize it, so it's wise for our three families to cooperate. After all, they still have several competent mutants, such as Xiao Holian, Xing Tian, and that Zhang Yi. Their abilities should not be weak, and a head-on confrontation wouldn't be beneficial for us, and might even allow other forces to profit from our strife. Gu Hongdai nodded slightly. She wasn't keen on starting a war lightly and thought the proposal was good, so she agreed. They better be sensible. If they're stubborn, then we might as well just wipe them out. Chen Liangyu raised his glass, smiling. Then let's act quickly, before others come to snatch this piece of fat meat. In their conversation, they had already considered Heavenly Sea City as something within their grasp, as if they held the winning ticket. Meanwhile, Zhang Yi and his group had just returned to Heavenly Sea City. He immediately convened the leaders of the major forces, began assigning them their respective tasks, and started organizing defense and counterattack plans. Once back in his own territory, Zhang Yi began setting setting up defenses. At that moment, Xiao Honglian thought to herself, now that Morning Dew base is under Zhang Yi's control, according to his personality, if a battle does occur, he will always prioritize his and his close associates' interests. In such a case, Xing Tian and I will be very passive. She knew that their base, Radiant Prosperity, could not withstand a military-level conflict. Without Zhang Yi's protection, they could only hide in the underground shelter, barely surviving. With this realization, Xiao Honglian made a decision. She walked up to Zhang Yi, bowed deeply with great respect, and said, "Please take the keys to the Radiant Prosperity base as well." Seeing this, Qin Jingwan smiled and exclaimed, "That's a wise decision." He felt somewhat proud inside. Although everyone is pledging allegiance to Zhang Yi, there is a pecking order. I was the first to join, so my status is definitely higher than the others. Xing Tian was stunned by this scene, feeling a mix of emotions. Everyone is following Zhang Yi. What should I do? After hesitating for a moment, he quickly ran up to Zhang Yi, forcing a smile, and said, "Old classmate, our Emerald Waterside base will also follow you from now on." At this time, Zhang Yi's expression was very calm. He did not show much interest in the allegiance of the various forces, but for the harmony and stability of Heavenly Sea City, he seemed to have no choice but to take charge. He looked at them and said lightly, "Do you understand what it costs to be my underling? It means, no matter what, you have to listen to me, even if I tell you to die." Hearing this, Xiao Honglian and Xing Tian were startled and asked in unison, "What did you say?" The statement shocked Xing Tian and Xiao Honglian, but they quickly realized that Zhang Yi was reminding them that allegiance meant unconditional obedience. After a moment's hesitation, both nodded and said, "Whatever you command in the future, we will do unconditionally. We just hope you can protect the people at our base." Xing Tian also looked at Zhang Yi and said, "We had a good relationship in the past. Old Zhang, you won't treat me badly, right?" Zhang Yi waved his hand and said, "If that's the case, then I reluctantly agree to your request. However, keep handling the petty affairs of your own bases as usual. I don't have the energy to meddle in your internal affairs, but in case of major issues, you must report to me, and everything must be under my command." Xiao Honglian and Xing Tian nodded, then left with their subordinates from the Temple Hill subway station. Qin Jingwan also politely said goodbye to Zhang Yi. At this moment, Zhang Yi pulled out the snow vehicle and said to his companions, "Let's head back." The mood was somewhat somber on the way back. After all, a big battle seemed inevitable. Chun-Lei complained with a frown, "Why is there always fighting and killing? Don't these people get tired?" Uncle Yu said gravely, "It's the trend of the times, and there's no avoiding it. Society has lost the order of civilization. The law of the jungle, survival of the fittest, is just the reality of the post-apocalyptic world. We just hope that River South Domain can establish more comprehensive rules soon to regulate all forces. Then we might have much more peace." Zhang Yi said solemnly, "After this battle, we need to make an example to warn the others. And this time, we must overturn their chicken coops completely. Only then can we deter other forces that are eyeing Heavenly Sea City." Meanwhile, in the shelter, several women were hoping for Zhang Yi's safe return. Suddenly, Yang Mi, who was leaning by the window, seemed to hear the sound of the snow vehicle. Excitedly, she exclaimed, "It really is Zhang Yi and the others coming back." Several women stood at the door filled with anticipation. As soon as Zhang Yi stepped inside, Yang Xinxin lunged toward him. Zhou Haimei quickly reminded, "Xinxin, let's give them some space first. It's cold outside. Let them come in and have some hot tea to warm up." This time, they noticed that the expressions on the faces of Zhang Yi and his group seemed a bit grave. Zhang Yi briefly explained the situation to everyone. "In the coming period, you'll need to stay put in the shelter again. During our time in Blizzard City, some powers perceived Heavenly Sea City as weak, and thus they harbored ideas of swallowing Heavenly Sea City. This battle is inevitable." Yang Mi said with regret, "We haven't had many peaceful days yet. Why do we have to fight again?" At this moment, Zhou Haimei shook her head, a look of regret on her face. "Isn't it better to live peacefully? Why must we always be involved in life and death struggles?" Uncle Yu patted her shoulder, smiling reassuringly. "Don't worry, we'll handle any big problems. You just need to do your part here at home." Zhang Yi said to Yang Xinxin, "I've taken over the 3 powers of Heavenly Sea City. You take charge of their network systems immediately. This way, I can keep an eye on their movements at any time." Yang Xinxin nodded. "That's simple, but I can also try to hack into the network systems of other cities." Hearing this, Zhang Yi was amazed. "Is that possible?" Yang Xinxin smiled and nodded. "Except for the network of Blizzard City, which I dare not tamper with casually, the networks of other cities are not difficult for me." A gleam of excitement shone in Zhang Yi's eyes. "Then hurry up and try to hack into Days City's network system. I need all their intelligence, especially information about their mutants." Yang Xinxin smiled confidently. "Consider it done." Then, Zhang Yi turned to Lu Karen. "Karen, you've also had access to a lot of stuff from Blizzard City. Absorb it well, and try to replicate that kind of combat suit if you can." Hearing this, Lu Karen playfully saluted. "Roger that." He then said to Yang Mi, "As for you, just keep doing your job. The more you can stock up on mutant food, the better." Yang Mi nodded. "I know. I haven't slacked off at all these days." Finally, he said to the others, "You all should rest well. Be in the best physical condition to face the new battle." That very night, Zhang Yi was suddenly awakened by a series of urgent alarm sounds. "Intruder alert! Intruder alert!" Zhang Yi picked up his phone and saw indeed 2 snow vehicles were approaching their shelter. Zhang Yi immediately got up, put on his combat suit. These guys really can't wait. He called Liang Yu and Uncle Yu. Let's go see what's happening. Liang Yu analyzed the screen. These guys seem cautious. They stopped over 200 meters away from the shelter, and from the car emblem, it seems they aren't from around here. As Zhang Yi walked towards the door, he said, I recognize the emblem. It should be people from Days City coming over, since they are the closest to our Heavenly Sea City. Uncle Yu, frowning with concern, said, sending only 2 vehicles in the middle of the night doesn't seem like they're declaring war. Zhang Yi laughed. What era do they think this is to still engage in formal declarations of war? If they really wanted to attack, they would catch us off guard. Who follows the old code of honor these days to tell you in advance they're coming to fight? I suspect they're here to intimidate us, hoping we'll surrender without a fight. After all, they're not without brains. Even if they think Heavenly Sea City is weak, the remaining mutants in our armed forces aren't something any ordinary force can just wipe out. Pushing people into a corner leaves no one with good outcomes. So, the best method is to persuade us to surrender, capturing most of Heavenly Sea City's resources without shedding blood. Why wouldn't they want that? Hearing this, Uncle Yu also expressed some confusion. Their intelligence capabilities are so poor. With Zhang Yi's current strength, where did they get the courage to intimidate us? Zhang Yi, with a playful look, said, who cares that much? We'll find out where their confidence comes from once we go out there. Zhang Yi called Uncle Yu and Liang Yu, and Flower also volunteered to follow along, leaped onto Zhang Yi's shoulder. Zhang Yi activated a dimensional shield around himself and the others, then walked out the door toward the 2 snow vehicles. The 2 snow vehicles seemed to have no intention of attacking, just quietly parked there. A few fully armed warriors sat inside, cautiously watching every move made by Zhang Yi and his group. A bearded man remarked, they are coming over. Another companion, laughing impatiently, complained, these guys look so weak. Just hand over the letter to them so we can go back and rest sooner. Yet another joked, it's rare to get out so far. Why rush it? After all, this place will soon be our territory. Hopefully, they'll be wise and clear out quickly. As Zhang Yi approached them, he crossed his arms and asked, who are you, and what are you doing here? At this moment, the bearded man handed over a letter. You're Zhang Yi, right? We are from Days City, messengers from the 3 major bases there. Our leader has a letter for you. Please read it carefully. It contains contact details. After considering it, send a reply to this address. However, Zhang Yi was unmoved, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Zhang Yi hesitated for a few seconds, then accepted it, but he casually stored the letter into his dimensional space. Seeing this, several mutants from Days City joked, wow, a rare space-type ability, not bad. However, their faces were full of mockery, clearly not taking Zhang Yi seriously. The bearded man continued arrogantly, we're giving you 1 day to decide, but now only 19 hours are left, considering the time it took us to travel here. Zhang Yi remained silent. The bearded man mockingly said, well then, goodbye and good luck. After saying this, he drove away. Uncle Yu was somewhat angry. Why not just deal with them directly? These guys are too arrogant. Zhang Yi calmly responded, I'm not interested in small fry, and rash actions would only make the enemy wary. It's better to see what they have actually said. Watching Zhang Yi's back, Uncle Yu couldn't help but remark, he's only in his 20s, yet he manages to maintain such a calm demeanor in the face of trouble, which is really rare. Liang Yu joked, there's a saying, the dogs that bite don't bark. Isn't that just like him? Zhang Yi stopped walking. Don't think just because I'm walking away, I can't hear you. Liang Yu covered her mouth awkwardly. I wasn't speaking ill of you behind your back. I was complimenting your composure. Zhang Yi was somewhat speechless. Then I'll take it as a compliment. Back at the shelter, Zhang Yi immediately asked Zhou Qi to prepare to go to the medical room. He didn't immediately touch the letter, but carefully retrieved it from his dimensional space, letting Zhou Qi check it first before he felt reassured to handle it. Then, he took out a pair of tweezers, carefully opened the envelope, and placed the letter on the table. Zhang Yi then put on a tactical helmet. The content of the letter was brief, stating, Heavenly Sea City has suffered a devastating war, with a significant loss of population, and the local powers are unable to defend themselves. As friendly neighbors, the 3 major powers of Days City wish to offer humanitarian support by assisting in defense. Please do not refuse. After reading it, Zhang Yi couldn't help but laugh. Anyone who can come up with such a righteous excuse must be talented. They've definitely worked in an office before.